Ocean is one of two major long-distance trains operated by Via Rail across Canada. This train is unique when compared to other North American trains as it uses train sets consisting of European-built passenger cars based on the British Rail Mark IV design. These cars are called Renaissance cars. They were built in the mid-1990s for a failed overnight service in the United Kingdom. While there are several videos going over the sleeping service on this train, and in these Renaissance cars, there are very few which highlight the coach experience. On our trip, we rode the entire distance of the route in coach. Join us on August 23, 2023 as we take a midweek departure from Montreal to Halifax on the ocean. Via Rail purchased 139 of these cars in the early 2000s for service on the ocean between Montreal and Halifax. The cars were shipped over from Europe and shopped in Thunder Bay for service on the train. Of the purchased cars, currently there are 33 coaches, 27 sleepers, 20 lounge cars, 14 club cars, 9 baggage cars, 3 dining cars, and 3 transition cars in active service. Most of the remaining car shells are in storage in Thunder Bay. The Renaissance cars retain their European-style couplers due to them operating mostly in fixed sets. The baggage cars and transition cars have a North American-style knuckle coupler on one end and a European-style coupler on the other. As of 2023, the Ocean typically operates with a mostly Renaissance consist of cars in the winter and an expanded consist of Renaissance and Bud cars during the busier summer months. On our trip, we had a 16-car summer consist, including 1 Renaissance baggage, a Renaissance coach, 4 Renaissance sleepers, a Renaissance lounge, a Renaissance diner, another Renaissance lounge and coach, a Renaissance transition car, a Bud coach, 3 Bud sleepers, and a Bud baggage. Our journey started at Montreal's Gare Centrale, and for our trip, we specifically wanted to ride the Renaissance cars. We booked coach tickets from Montreal to Halifax and hoped to not be placed in a Bud coach for our trip. As we boarded, we were directed to a pair of coaches towards the middle of the train. When we were greeted by our lead service manager, she directed us to a Bud coach. However, after we explained we were rail fans, she let us board the Renaissance coach, which was separated from the Bud coach by the transition car. Inside the coach, it was as different and interesting as we had hoped it would be. When you enter the coach, you are greeted by an offset aisle with 2x1 seating. The reason for the 2x1 arrangement, even in coach, is that the cars are built slightly narrower than most passenger cars intended for the North American market. The narrowness is due to the tighter loading gauge in the European market and the Channel Tunnel. The seats, while showing their age, are large and plush. For coach seats, these seem to be more like a premium business class seat than a basic economy seat. The 2x1 arrangement causes the aisle to be offset to one side, with similarly offset overhead storage. This offset is demonstrated nicely when looking down the car from behind the seats. Looking at the seats, they sit up on platforms and feature a decent amount of legroom. The pair of seats are both rather wide and include armrests on the outside of the seats as well as an oversized armrest between the seat pair. In addition to the overhead storage, you have storage below the seats which is large enough for a duffel bag or backpack. Taking a tour of the seat, we can see that there is ample legroom for an average height person. There is also a footrest, however I did not find the placement of this to be very useful. As we continue to look at the seat amenities, we have a tray table which is stowed ahead of you. The tray table pulls out and unfolds for a decent sized table area. Between the two seats is a pair of North American style outlets as well as the oversized armrest. Finally, the seat features blackout blinds for getting some rest at night. From the aisle side seat, it is much of the same. Above the seat ahead of you is your overhead storage, which is quite small. We can also see how wide the seats are when looking at the window seat in this view. At night, the seats have a decent amount of legroom for sleeping. The seats also feature good recline, and the area gets plenty dark for getting some rest at night. The restroom in the Renaissance coach is about the same size as a comparable rail car. Slightly better than an airplane restroom, but still somewhat cramped. There are 2 restrooms on one end of the car. The 2 main coach accommodations on our train were the Renaissance coaches and the Bud coach. As noted earlier, the Renaissance coach is in a 2x1 seating arrangement. The Bud coach is slightly wider than the Renaissance coach, which allows for a traditional 2x2 seating arrangement. The Bud coach on our train has been recently rebuilt, including refurbished seats. Since we wanted to ride in the Renaissance coach, we passed up on riding the Bud coach, but did compare them during our ride. While talking to several passengers who have ridden the train and coach before, they all stated that they would have rather had the Bud coach than a Renaissance coach. We found that we preferred the Renaissance coach over the Bud coach for the overnight trip. When comparing the 2 seats, we found the Renaissance coach seats to be softer and more comfortable for sleeping. One of the main reasons we found them nicer for an overnight trip was due to how wide the seats were and the oversized armrests separating passengers. The Bud coaches did not include an armrest to separate passengers, and the seats seemed to be more firm in the Bud coach when compared to the Renaissance coach. Of course, the trip would not be complete without viewing some scenery. The Eastern Canada countryside is some of the best countryside in the eastern half of North America. While we're not in a glass-top dome car, the Eastern Canada scenery is still fantastic as we watch from the lounge car. Coach passengers also have access to a Renaissance lounge car, which separates the coach section from the sleeping section. The lounge has quite a unique seating arrangement, with seats for 13 passengers as well as an area to stand. The lounge also has a cafe window for coach passengers to purchase light hot meals as well as snacks. We sampled a few of the lighter meals and found one of the better options to be the cheese pizza. The hot food options are very similar to Amtrak on this train, but the cheese pizza stood out because rather than be microwaved, it is cooked in an oven. Other options include a microwaved burger, microwaved hot dog, and soup, which is a soup cup warmed with hot water. We spent a decent amount of time in the lounge, enjoying the large windows and open area. While the seating could be improved, it was still a nice change of pace from the coach seat. The last car that coach passengers officially have access to is the transition car. This car's main purpose is to allow Renaissance coaches to be coupled to other cars that have traditional North American knuckle couplers. This car contains some electrical equipment and storage, but other than that, it's basically an 85-foot long hallway. After a mostly relaxing ride and running just over 4 hours late, we made it into Halifax, the furthest east train station in North America. Overall, the scenery on the ocean is well worth the trip, even if the train no longer rates its park car domed viewing area. We are not sure how much longer the Renaissance cars will serve this train, which is why we decided to take this trip and fill in the last miles of our Trans-Canada rail travel for 2023. Thanks for watching. If you liked this trip report and overview of riding the ocean in Renaissance coach, do not forget to subscribe for future rail fanning videos.